Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 582, The Forgotten Subway, Intermediate. Mark was a night shift worker in the city, taking the last subway train home every evening. One Friday, after a long day at the office, he boarded the empty carriage as usual. The doors closed with a hiss, and the train rattled into the dark tunnel. But something felt off, the lights flickered more than normal, and a strange smell lingered, like rotting meat. As the train sped along, Mark noticed scratches on the windows, deep and jagged, as if made by claws. He shrugged it off, pulling out his phone to check messages. No signal. The announcements crackled, next stop. Eternal. Mark frowned. That wasn't right. The voice sounded gargled, like someone drowning. Suddenly, the train jerked to a stop between stations. The lights went out, plunging everything into blackness. Mark's heart raced. He fumbled for the emergency button, but it did nothing. Then, from the far end of the carriage, he heard shuffling footsteps. Slow, wet slaps against the floor. A dim emergency light buzzed on, revealing shadowy figures emerging from the darkness. They were people, or what used to be people. Their bodies twisted, skin hanging loose like melted wax, eyes milky and blind. One crawled closer, its jaw unhinged, whispering, "Join the lost." "We waited for you." Mark backed away, pressing against the door. He remembered the urban legend about the forgotten line, an old subway route abandoned after a collapse years ago, where victims were trapped and starved, turning feral. But that was just a story. Or was it? The figures lunged, their fingers bony and sharp. Mark kicked one away, its flesh tearing like paper, spilling black ooze. He ran to the next carriage, but it was worse. Bodies piled up, fused together in a grotesque mass, moaning in unison. The train never stops. Feed us. Desperate, Mark smashed a window with his bag, glass shattering. He climbed out into the tunnel, the cold air biting his skin. Behind him, the creatures poured out, screeching. He ran blindly, tripping over rails, his flashlight barely lighting the way. Up ahead, a faint glow, an old platform, sealed off. Mark scrambled up, pounding on a rusted gate. But as he turned, the horde caught up. Their leader, a skeletal woman with stringy hair, grabbed his ankle. "You can't escape the depths," she rasped. Mark fought, but they overwhelmed him, dragging him back into the shadows. His screams echoed as they tore into him, adding his bones to their eternal ride. The next morning, the subway ran on time. No one noticed the missing worker. But late-night riders sometimes hear faint cries from the tunnels, warning of the forgotten below. Vocabulary notes. Jagged, adjective. Definition: having a rough, sharp, or uneven edge or surface, often with points that stick out irregularly, like something broken or torn. Example: as the train sped along, Mark noticed scratches on the windows, deep and jagged, as if made by claws. This describes the scratches as uneven and sharp, emphasizing the creepy, animal-like damage. Similar words: ragged, uneven and torn, serrated, notched like a saw, uneven, not smooth or level. Gargled, verb, past tense of gargle. Definition: to make a bubbling or gurgling sound in the throat, often like liquid being swished around, which can sound distorted or unpleasant. Example: the announcements crackled, next stop. Eternal. Mark frowned. That wasn't right. The voice sounded gargled, like someone drowning. Here, it describes the announcement voice as distorted and watery, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Similar words: gurgled, bubbled like liquid, rasped, spoke harshly or roughly, croaked, made a low, hoarse sound. Plunged, verb, past tense of plunge. Definition: to suddenly fall or thrust into something quickly and deeply, often implying a dramatic or forceful drop, like into darkness or water. Example: suddenly, the train jerked to a stop between stations. The lights went out, plunging everything into blackness. This shows the sudden shift into complete darkness, heightening the sense of fear and isolation. Similar words: dived, jumped headfirst, immersed, submerged deeply, thrust, pushed suddenly. Unhinged, adjective. Definition: detached or removed from its normal position, like a door off its hinges, can also mean mentally unstable or crazy, but here it's literal for something like a jaw. Example: one crawled closer, its jaw unhinged, whispering, "Join the lost. We waited for you." This describes the creature's jaw as hanging loose, making it look monstrous and inhuman. Similar words: dislocated, out of joint, loosened, not firmly attached, deranged, insane or unbalanced, in a figurative sense. Feral, adjective. Definition: in a wild, untamed state, like an animal that has returned to nature after being domesticated, often implies savage or aggressive behavior. Example: he remembered the urban legend about the forgotten line, an old subway route abandoned after a collapse years ago, where victims were trapped and starved, turning feral. This refers to the trapped people becoming wild and animal-like from starvation. Similar words: wild, untamed or savage, fierce and violent, primitive, basic and uncivilized. Grotesque, adjective. Definition: strangely distorted or ugly in a way that is shocking or repulsive, often combining elements that don't belong together to create horror. Example: he ran to the next carriage, but it was worse, bodies piled up, fused together in a grotesque mass, moaning in unison. This describes the fused bodies as horribly twisted and unnatural, evoking disgust. Similar words: hideous, extremely ugly, monstrous, frighteningly abnormal, bizarre, strangely out of place. Story written by Grok for AI. Image created by Imagio AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. CC Music, drifting at 432 Hz, unicorn heads.
All right, we're going to jump right into a story that really gets under your skin. It taps into this really common fear. What if your totally normal, everyday commute suddenly went horribly wrong? This is the story of the forgotten subway. And, well, it might just make you think twice about your next ride home.
Seriously, think about it for a second. That route you take every single day, the sounds, the stops, the feeling of the train moving. You feel like you know it by heart, right? But what if there are parts of that journey you've never seen? What if something ancient and hungry is waiting just beyond the platform lights?
So, let's meet our guy, Mark. He's a night shift worker. And for him, catching the last train home isn't just a commute, it's a routine. You know, it's that familiar, quiet moment after a long, hard shift. And everything starts out completely normal. It's late on a Friday, and hey, he gets a whole carriage to himself. You know, that's a small win for any commuter. The doors hiss shut, the train gives that familiar rattle as it heads into the tunnel. I mean, this could be any city, anywhere in the world. But tonight the ordinary starts to feel wrong. A weird feeling starts to creep in. It's that subtle kind of wrongness you try to brush off, but it's there. It's just lingering in the air.
Let's really break this down. The lights in the car, they aren't just doing that occasional flicker. No, tonight it's this constant, sick strobing effect. And the air? It doesn't have that normal stale but clean subway smell. It's been replaced by this foul, thick stench of rotting meat. And the windows? They're just covered in these deep, jagged scratches, almost like claws. Every little detail is just another sign that something is terribly wrong. That little feeling of unease, well, it's about to explode into full-on terror. The whole situation is going to go from just strange to absolutely dire in a heartbeat.
And then, the announcement system crackles on. But it's not the name of a station he hears. It's this horrible, gargled, almost drowning voice, and it announces a destination that isn't on any map. Next stop, Eternal. Can you just imagine hearing that all alone in an empty train car?
And boom, the train just lurches to a dead stop. Not at a station, but in the complete pitch-black darkness of the tunnel. Total silence, total blackness. Mark's heart is just pounding in his chest as he scrambles for the emergency button. He's slamming it over and over. Nothing. It's dead. He's completely trapped. Just as that pure panic is setting in, a single dim emergency light flickers to life. And what it shows him? It's the stuff of nightmares. From the other end of the car, he hears it first, this slow, shuffling sound, and it's paired with this wet, slapping noise against the floor. And then he sees them. Shadowy figures. Their skin seems to be hanging off them like melted wax. And their eyes? Just these horrifying, milky white, blind orbs. They're not people anymore. They're what's left over. One of them starts to crawl towards him, its jaw just hanging loose, and it whispers this ghastly invitation. And this is the part that sends a chill down your spine. This wasn't random. They were waiting for him. In this moment of just sheer dread, a piece of old city lore just clicks into place in Mark's head. It's a half-forgotten ghost story he heard a long time ago, one that suddenly feels way too real. He suddenly remembers the urban legend of the forgotten line. The story goes that decades ago, a tunnel collapsed and it trapped an entire train. They were never rescued. They were just left down there. And in the dark, they starved, they changed, they became something else entirely. Mark realizes he's just stumbled right into their territory. So, with this horrifying truth just crashing down on him, his body just takes over. The story now shifts into this frantic, desperate scramble for survival. There's no plan. There's only pure adrenaline-fueled instinct to get out. His escape is just pure reaction. He kicks one of the attackers, and its flesh just tears away like wet paper. He runs to the next car, but it's even worse. It's filled with this grotesque pile of bodies all fused together. In a total panic, he uses his bag to smash a window, leaps out into the pitch-black tunnel, and just runs, as you can hear them screeching and pouring out of the train right behind him. He's just running for his life in near-total darkness, tripping over cables and rails, his phone's flashlight barely cutting through the thick gloom. And then, way up ahead, he sees it. A faint glow. It looks like an old, sealed-off platform. That's his only chance. So he's scrambling towards that light, towards what he thinks is his salvation. But this is where the story reaches its chilling and maybe inevitable conclusion. This isn't a story with a happy ending.
He finally makes it to the platform, and he's just pounding on this old, rusted gate, but it won't budge. It's sealed shut. And as he turns around, the horde is right there. Their leader, this skeletal-looking figure, grabs his ankle and just rasps out these final, hopeless words. There's no way out.
And it's over in an instant. They just overwhelm him. They drag him back into the darkness of the train, and his screams echo through the empty tunnels for just a moment before being completely swallowed by the shadows. He's just become the newest passenger on their eternal ride.
And you know what the truly unsettling part is? What happens next? Absolutely nothing. The next morning, the subway runs right on schedule. Mark is just another missing person, quickly forgotten about. The world just moves on, completely unaware of the horror that's unfolding beneath its feet every single night. The only trace left is the sound. These faint cries that late-night riders sometimes swear they can hear, coming from the darkness of the tunnels.
So the next time you're standing on a platform, late at night, and you hear a strange sound echoing out of that dark tunnel, just wonder, what forgotten horrors might be lurking just out of sight, right beneath your feet?